Now we are moving on to green screen. We're actually moving faster than I thought we
We're not complaining.
Right, so 11:45. Okay, green screens. So over here it says the main purpose for using a green screen is the special effects. Like if you look at like the news, for example, and someone is presenting the weather and stuff like that, you always see those type of animations. So what they do is, if you're not familiar with the green screen, they usually use this type of cloth. The cloth that we have is basically like this. It's basically just a green cloth that we get. So this type of cloth you can get in Chinatown. Like you just buy a fabric. So this is 1 meter. 1 meter is like $40 per meter. So depending on how big you want your green screen, you can always buy the cloth. But like we're fine with this one. We didn't have a production that requires us to use a bigger size than this. But yeah, you can get yourself a 1 meter or a 2 meter to be safe. And the way we use green screens and the way we light them is, like if you can see here, we use now a 3 lighting setup. Like this one here, the one I showed you earlier is this one that records the main light. So I would always have it on top. And if you look at this area here, you'll see a little bit of shadow from the subject. So what you do to kill the shadow, because you don't really want to have the shadow there when you're going to remove the green screen. So always have your lighting set up in a way that the shadow would not show on the green screen. So a good way to do that is have the light on top that lights the subject, and have the shadow be more on the ground as opposed to being on the wall. So that's something that you need to look at when you're going to use a green screen. Here we have a bird's eye view of a 3 lighting setup. Like here, again, it's 2 lights lighting on both sides. And then we have another light that's lighting on the subject. I think this person used a 4 light setup to kill the shadow, but I usually have mine like next to the camera and have it face the subject and have the shadow on the floor. So you can either have it like this as a 4 lighting setup or a 3 lighting setup, whichever way you wanna have it. So it's pretty cool to have a green screen. Green screens, like I mentioned, I usually use for like the news when someone is presenting the weather or anything that you want to add animations in. Like, I don't know if you've seen colors. It's almost like Tiny Desk, but like it's more of like people performing, but they usually shoot them in a green screen studio and then they change the background. So it's an amazing tool to use if you can use it properly or creatively. Like we would use a green screen for Jumper Namibia, for example, and brand it with our colors. So if you're gonna brand your vlogging page and you wanna have like the green screen there, rather have it for introductions, for example, where you have the background moving and you introducing what you are going to talk about today, and then you go into another setup like a sitting room, for example. And yeah, but it depends on how creative you wanna have it. Hello, yeah, welcome. So B-rolls and cutaways. Do you wanna touch on that?
All right, so a cutaway or a B-roll, they are different, but they kind of serve the same purpose. So a cutaway is basically where, like I said, you're telling a story and then suddenly we cut to a different shot where we see you now acting or going through what it is that you said you were, the story, you're basically showing us what the story is or you're acting it out. And you can use cutaways for different things. You find YouTubers, like, they use it to show their emotion when they suddenly they're telling you a story and then somebody has a facial reaction and then they cut to that person, maybe to the group, they're talking about something and somebody made a funny face, so they will quickly cut to that person and just, zoom in on that face that they were making. I've also seen videos where they would be talking about, the other day I was sleeping, and then they cut to a shot where the person is sleeping. So you can use it just to enhance your video, to make it more interesting, so that we're not just sitting there watching you talk the whole time. If that's your style, it's also good, cool, it's up to you. But it also just adds a little bit of personality to your video. And then a B-roll is usually used when you're trying to, where somebody is talking about a product. So you have those videos where they're talking about the latest phone, and they'll say, oh, this phone has this type of camera, and then the phone will be sitting there, and then the camera will be moving around the phone, talking about the phone and the features, like, oh, it has this button, it has this and that, and they're just basically talking about the product, and they're showing you these different features about the product. You can also see it in videos where companies are trying to market their laptops, their cameras, or whatever it is. It's usually for the product, and they're just showing different features. And also a B-roll can also be a slow motion shot as well, where you're just showing the person walking from one spot to the next, or just showing something in detail. Basically, you're just focusing on that particular product or whatever character that you're focusing in that moment. So that's the difference between cutaways and B-rolls. And you can really use it however you please. It's up to you to just give your video a little bit of je ne sais quoi.
All right, so yeah, if you watch the news and you have someone presenting, for example, you always see them having shots of where the place is and what they're doing and stuff like that. So those are cutaways, basically.